All right. Well, welcome everybody. How's everyone doing so far? Good? Cool.
A little less energy than day one.
A little tired. Well, thank you for taking an hour spending time with Jeremy and I today to learn a little bit how you can find champions internally at organizations, develop them, incentivize them, et cetera. We're going to walk through a little bit about that process today. So my name is Mike Madigan. I am on the customer success team out of our Washington, D.C. office. So I work with a lot of our customers on the enterprise side to really help them on an adoption standpoint. So understanding what they need to be successful, what they need to utilize the software and get the most out of the analytics they have. So I'm excited to kind of talk to you guys today. So Jeremy?
And my name is Jeremy Blaney. I manage a team of strategic customer success managers that support customers in our public sector business, as well as those global system integrators. I've been at Tableau for a couple of years now, exclusively within the customer success space. Prior to this, I was in people analytics at Bank of America, and prior to all that, the US Air Force for like a decade. In addition to all of my Tableau stuff, I'm also a lecturer on data analytics at the Fletcher School at Tufts University. But again, welcome to one and all to our session. So how about the blueprint, right? Hopefully this is not the first time that you've seen the blueprint. Adam, our CEO, talked about it in his keynote, and I'm sure it's come up in a couple of other presentations throughout the week. Blueprint's pretty exciting stuff. I think the stat that's being shared kind of again and again is that some 90+% of organizations are failing to achieve that goal of becoming more data-driven in their efforts. And our solution to that is Blueprint. Over the past couple of years, we surveyed all of our customers, took all of the wonderful things that they were doing, packaged it up into a wonderful framework, and that framework is the Blueprint. Starts with analytic strategy, right? Identifying where the customer is and where they want to go to make the use of data for their organizational objectives. From there, it continues on to the exec team piece. Blueprint is pretty big. We got to figure out the right folks to be a part of this effort. From there, we move down 3 tracks, one focused on agility, another focused on proficiency, another focused on community, and within each of those 3 tracks, there's 3 stops. So it's like 9 stops total. And then we've got this trusted and governance thing at the top. And underneath each of these bits, there's PDFs online. And now that I'm talking about this, I was really excited about Blueprint, flipping the stat around, really becoming a more data-driven organization. But now I'm getting a sense of holy crap, there's a lot of stuff involved here. And I'm starting to feel a little panicky, just like this guy. Blueprint is not as exciting as I once thought it was. I'm recognizing that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And so what do? I modify the Blueprint a little bit and decide to begin my journey right here at the bar having a big old beer. And what happens then? One beer leads to the next, and then I never get started on the Blueprint. And a year later, I'm at Tableau Conference 2020, wondering how do I become a more data-driven organization? It doesn't need to be that way. Within all of your organizations is an incredible data family that's here to help. But like many volunteer or champion efforts, you can't simply go to these individuals and say, do you want to help? Great, help, and sort of stare at them awkwardly until they identify what it is that they want to do. You need to put in place a program that allows individuals to more easily contribute towards some greater good, and that is what we are here to talk about today.
Awesome. So what are we going to talk about today? Jeremy and I covered it a little bit, but we're going to talk about really what is a champion? What do they do? What types of champions do you have at your organization? Where do you find them? Is it internally, externally? Where exactly do these champions live? Because I'm sure at each one of your organizations, you have a lot of exceptional talent. You have a lot of really curious and hungry people, so how do we uncover those people? And then we're going to talk about how do you incentivize them, right? Because oftentimes we're finding when it comes to Tableau work, the extra Tableau work, if it's relating to the community, development, things like this, it might not necessarily be in their job description. So how do we incentivize them to, one, want to spend time with that, and then provide them value and give them a little bit back? And then how do we keep those champions credible, right? Because we always focus on how are we going to develop the new Tableau users, how are we going to get more hits on our dashboards and all of this, but we're identifying these champions, then how are we going to invest back in them, right? So I was talking to somebody yesterday around, if you think about Tableau, it's more than a skill. It's often a career path at this point, right? Folks are using Tableau to really grow themselves within their career. So we're going to talk a little bit how we can keep them credible. Is this?
There's
All
a
right.
clicker.
We have a clicker, yeah. So first we're gonna talk about what do champions, what do they do? So champions are a key part of the adoption process because they reduce dependency on a centralized support team. So how many of you are running the Tableau environment at your organization? How many of you have enough time to do everything that needs to be done to run the Tableau environment? I'm glad I saw no hands because I would have had more questions after that. So what type of champions and what levels of champions do we want to find in your organization? We always think of these champions as maybe Zen masters, ambassadors, really exceptional Tableau users, right? And I think that's a critical part of it, but I think there's more to it, right? So if you think about champions, I look at it threefold, right? So you need an executive level champion. What does an executive level champion mean, right? So this is essentially somebody who really understands analytics, who is really driving that analytics impact within your organization. They really want the organization to become data-driven, right? And at the end of the day, this executive needs to have some type of clout within your organization because if you're going to be pushing ideas and methodology on the whole organization, people need to really buy into that. You know, enterprise deployments, smaller deployments, any type of deployment you have when it comes to analytics, you're going to need the coordination across different business units, right? The last thing you want is different business units to do different things within Tableau. But if we don't have that executive or higher level person to drive that change, then we're going to be all doing different things and we're going to be at different places within our journey. Then we're going to have the business user champions, and I think this is where Tableau's really become Tableau, right? We've heard a lot from the community this year. How many of you watched the keynote yesterday? How many of you heard Anya open the keynote yesterday? It was in the beginning of it. I thought her talk was super powerful yesterday because it really focused on the people behind analytics, right? Because if you don't have the right people driving change, answering these questions, then it's not going to work. So how do we uncover these people? And that's where a lot of them are going to start at the business user level, right? So these are going to be the folks anywhere within your organization. I've seen champions at the intern level. It doesn't really matter. If you're looking for those curious people, those people are hungry to answer that next question. But they do have to have some level, and a significant level of Tableau acumen. And not only Tableau acumen, I call it analytics acumen. Maybe you use Alteryx at your organization. Some data cataloging. We all know Tableau does not operate alone, so what does that look like? And then we need IT champion. We all have a challenge working with IT sometimes, right? So we need that person with an IT who's going to be an advocate for Tableau, right? And sometimes it's simple as not being that roadblocker to getting licensing, right? Putting in a process in place to make it easy to download Tableau. All different products that we have today, Tableau Prep, Tableau Desktop, as well as Tableau Server. They also need to work with the business units to kind of understand what is the process going to be around maintenance, upgrading, and things like that. And I think the IT person is going to rely heavily on the executive champion. This is why it's a circle. Because at the IT level, you're going to often be putting in a lot of the governance in place from a data perspective, as well as a content perspective. But if it's not being backed up by that executive in your organization, then nobody's going to listen to IT, and they're going to kind of do their own thing, and it's become the wild, wild west, right? So I think it's really critical as we think about it that we have different people from these organizations. Wow, there's subtitles up there, throwing me off. And I think the key thing to call out here is it doesn't have to be one executive, it doesn't have to be one business user, it doesn't have to be one IT, it can be multiple people. But it also can be one. So let's start somewhere, and let's identify some of these people, and let's figure out how we can grow from there and uncover more, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. So at the end of the day, what are the expectations of these champions, right? Because this isn't their day-to-day job. They're likely not getting paid to be a Tableau champion. And if they are, I would love to talk to you about how you justified that internally. So to kind of recover some of what I just talked about is, at the executive level, we really need that person who's going to be vocal. Who's going to be an advocate of Tableau, right? Oftentimes, you're going to have to take it in stride. It's going to be a challenge to get people on the mindset of Tableau, right? And how we're going to paint that picture, it's really going to be different, but we need that person who's going to be a vocal advocate. We need to be somebody who's going to be willing and open to promoting organizational change when it comes to analytics, or anything for that matter. Because if they're not willing to change, then we're going to really run into roadblocks, right? Because at the end of the day, this is a big change management exercise. I gave a talk yesterday around migrating folks from old school analytics to modern analytics with self-service, and it really needs to be a stepped approach. So understanding that and knowing that there's going to be challenges and everything you try isn't going to work, but it's important to have an environment that is promoting you to be able to try something new. And then they do need to be part of the overall company's analytics strategy, right? Because if you look at Tableau, likely at your organizations, Tableau is one part of your analytics strategy, right? We all know you guys use other tools, you use data cleaning, you use catalogs, you use all of these things. So how does this all come together and operate as one to drive towards that goal? And then the business champion. These are my favorite because this is the stuff that I love to do, is the community aspect of it, right? So how many of you have an internal community at your organization? Great, a good number of you. Let's get that number up, and hopefully you can learn some of what today. I mean, being at TC, just hearing the talks from our community, from our ambassadors, from our Zen masters, from the people who just took Tableau today, it's inspiring to me. I am very active on Twitter. I love to follow Tableau people, and every once in a while I'll see somebody share someone's hashtag being like, hey, this person's new to the data fam, let's get them some followers. And then all of a sudden they have hundreds of followers. It's awesome, right? But you need those people who are willing to take time out of their day to really drive those activities internally, right? If it's an internal user group, if it's maintaining an intranet site, maybe doing a Makeover Monday session, or doing a scaled back version of the Iron Viz, which we watched yesterday, which was pretty awesome. Those three did an amazing job. And I think this community aspect, when you're talking to these people, is really being clear in what's in it for them, right? Why should they be a part of this? Telling the story of what that can do, how that can impact them, as well as how it can impact your organization. And then finally is really helping in the understanding and proficiency, right? Because if you think about it, these business users are the people who are going to be using Tableau the most. Ideally, they're going to be your most skilled users today. And I think when we think about Tableau, is you think about the technical how-to, right? How do you do an LOD? How do you do a parameter? How do you do this? How do you answer that question? But I think a lot of it comes in, and this is where the champions are going to really play a big part, is how do you tell an effective data story, right? How do you answer the question that's being presented to you? I was at an event by a large bank a couple years ago, and this woman got up on stage to close the day, and she was like, hey, if we're spending all of this time, money, resources, and analytics, but it's not answering that business question at hand, then what's the point, right? The answer is there is no point, right? Because if you aren't answering those, then what are we doing? So using these people to really kind of tell that story. How do we really promote people to want to tell that data story? And there's going to be more on that as we go. And then again, the IT champion. I think these people are equally as important. They're sometimes the hardest to win because they're in their ways, and that's okay. That's our job to convince them otherwise. We really don't want them to be a roadblocker, right? Because if you think about it, if you or one of your users at your organization wants Tableau or wants training on Tableau and they go to IT and they get asked 100 questions or sent to 4 different people, that person's likely going to do something else. They're going to go back to Excel. We all have so much we can do on a day-to-day basis, so let's make that access super easy and clear. Establishing clear support channels, right? So where do your users go for help? Because if you think about it, if Jeremy has a question on desktop, he's going to go to somebody different than if I have a question based on server or based on data. So leveraging that information and where people need to go for that information is super critical. Because the quicker we can get those answers in the hands of your people, the better. All right, so I think this is going to be the fun part. So we establish what is a champion. Obviously, there's a little bit more to it than that, but we really want to cover some of the main aspects of what we've seen be successful there. So if you think about champions, there's going to be 2 main ways to find champions, 1 internally and 2 externally, right? So we're going to focus on internally first. How many of you have Tableau Server in your organization? How many of you are aware of the Postgres data that you have access to? Great, most of you. So the Postgres data is something that you guys have access to as Tableau Server owners. We do not have access to this data because this is your data, obviously. But you can look at it, right? You can analyze this data to see what people are doing within your environment. The picture I have on the screen is actually a blog written by the Information Lab, which is one of our awesome partners out there, on a workbook that they've put together to analyze that data, right? So this is another thing that I highly encourage you guys to do as you're starting to think about how you manage your environment, how you manage your deployment, is go to Google. Google what you're trying to do. You're going to get so many answers. There's so many amazing resources out there. It's funny, oftentimes you guys will come to me for a question. I'll go straight to Google and then give you the answer, right? It is what it is.
That's how Mike makes a buck.
But within that data, some things to really call out is you can see who's who's accessing Tableau and how frequently they're accessing it, right? So if you're seeing somebody access Tableau multiple times a day or a month, let's understand what they're doing. Why are they accessing Tableau? They obviously either have a job specific to a Tableau dashboard, or they're really into what they're doing. So they're passionate about data. They're passionate about Tableau. Let's reach out to them. Let's just ask a couple simple questions like, hey, what are you doing? Why are you doing this, right? Because I doubt that what every single user within your organization is doing. So let's start to kind of share those ideas. You'll kind of understand as you see those most frequent users, they're going to just have that inherent ability when it comes to Tableau, right? You're going to be able to see who has accessed the most content. How many different dashboards are they accessing? Are they going to one workbook all the time? Are they going to different projects? Where exactly do they fit within that organization? You can see trends. I think this is critical, right? Because if you guys, we're going to talk about KPIs a little bit here in a little bit, but understanding where do we want to go as an organization? What are we driving towards, right? So if you have big sales project, let's look at those trends. Maybe there's dashboards that are increased usage, and there's a reason behind that. So let's understand why. Let's understand who's involved in that, right? Because I think oftentimes we really want to understand what the value of a dashboard is or a creator or things like this. But oftentimes that creator might not necessarily know what the value of that dashboard is because Joe in IT or Joe executive was like, hey, go build this dashboard based on these requirements. But that person who made that ask understands what the benefit is. So let's kind of connect those dots and understand how that fits within the organization. And this comes down to, and this is simple. I know this sounds dumb, but sometimes literally all you have to do is ask, right? As you're talking to your users, as you're analyzing your environment, you're seeing the passion come forth of what you're doing. Ask for help, right? Ask if they want to get involved. I was working with a large payroll company last year. This is actually like almost 2.5 years ago at this point. And this guy came to me and he was like, hey, Mike, I want to start a community. I was like, great. What do you want to do? He was like, I want to do a user group. I want to do a Tableau day. I want to do doctor. I want to do makeover sessions. I was like, awesome. What type of sport do you have? He's like, just me. I was like, well, I don't think you have time to do that, Dennis. You have a job. And he was like, how do we do it? How do we find people, right? So the first thing that we did was we sent out a simple survey to all of the desktop owners, asking 5 questions, right? Who are you? What department are you in? What are you doing? Would you be interested in helping in the Tableau community at this company, right? We ended up getting 17 people who said yes. Now, we all called them individually, and 3/4 of them didn't understand what they were saying yes to. But we did identify 3 people who were passionate about Tableau. They have been using Tableau their whole career. And right away this took about 2 to 3 months to really get fully in place, but we were able to identify somebody to host monthly doctor sessions. We did quarterly makeover Monday sessions. And the way they did it was they had people submit their viz internally to this team, and then they made a selection every month based on the requirements and based on what they were trying to do, timelines, et cetera. And then that makeover would be shared within their Tableau user group, right? It was awesome. And then finally, the third person was really brought in to really be in charge of bringing the different lines of business together. They were super siloed at that point. They had 3 different user clusters, 3 completely different server environments, and we were able to really consolidate everything and bring everybody together. So the point of this story is, going back to the server data, is if you can uncover those passionate people at your organization, understand what their passion is about, why they're curious, why they're involved in Tableau, and simply asking if they want to get involved, and really being clear, not, I need your help because I don't have enough time. It's like, hey, I think you should help because this is going to impact you in your career, and this is why. This is a way for you to get exposure internally at our organization. This is a way for you to have fun at your job. I think Tableau is fun. I think getting involved in the community stuff is fun. I work at Tableau. I'm technically at work right now, but this is awesome. I'm having a great time, right? And then some other things that we can kind of help you with is really understanding who's completed a certification, right? Because you guys might not know that. Maybe they got the certification at a previous company. We have the specialist exam now. A lot of people are doing that. A lot of colleges are putting in programs where they're driving students to get Tableau certifications, which I think is awesome. Goes back to our Tableau for Students program, which they referenced in the keynote yesterday. We've had millions of students engage with our platform for free, which I think is great. So figuring out who those people are, because if they have a Tableau certification, they have a certain level of Tableau acumen already. So let's try to leverage that. if it's simple as just telling the story of how they got certified. Who's completed trainings? Who's gone to a desktop class? Who's done e-learning? If you have an internal skill belt program, who's completed that, right? And then really understanding what people's existing skill sets are. Because what I'm finding is, if you're gonna find people with certain types of skill sets, if they have an advanced analytics degree, if they have a statistics degree, or something like that, it's gonna be easier for them to pick up Tableau. But I wanna be clear on that. For you to use Tableau, you don't need one of those degrees. And I think that's the best part about this company and what we do here is it doesn't matter your background. I have a communications degree. I started working for AT&T, then I worked for a finance company, and somehow I'm in data analytics now, and it's the best decision I've ever made. So being clear on that too is when you're looking for these champions, you don't necessarily have to look for that predefined skill set. I was in the Data Leaders Summit earlier this week, and Paul Benoub from UBS, if you're not following him online, I think it's Viz Ninja is his blog. He puts amazing content out there. And he focuses on, when he's hiring people, he's really focused on those intangibles. Are you hungry? Are you data curious? Are you not okay with that first question? Because that's what's gonna really make impact there. And then understanding those use cases. How many of you think you know exactly how Tableau is being used at your organization by everybody? Great. Again, if somebody had raised their hand, I would ask a follow-up question. So how do you uncover those use cases, right? Again, let's ask those questions. Let's put together a survey. Let's give them an opportunity to share what they're doing. And I think when you're thinking about this, when you're looking for these champions, it's not necessarily what they're doing, it's how are they doing it? How'd they get there? What were they doing before, and how long did it take? And then which ones are wide-reaching, right? Like a sales use case is gonna touch many different lines of business, for example. People analytics it's a big topic these days, which I love. It's gonna touch many parts of the organization, so understanding those use cases from that aspect. And then you can always ask Tableau. I know you often don't want to talk to sales guys or things like this, but we can provide some value sometimes. It's okay. So again, this ties back to if you don't necessarily know how to analyze your Postgres data set, we can help you do that. We can also help you understand who is viewing the most content on our website. We have access to that information. So maybe you have users going to Tableau every day, watching learning videos, watching getting started videos, reading customer stories, things like that. And it's as simple as reaching out to your account team, being like, hey, can I get this information? And we can provide that to you, right? So then you can reach out to those people and be like, hey, Joe, what are you doing? Mary, why are you viewing these videos? Do you have a new project? Do you have Tableau? Didn't even know you were in our organization, right? So we can kind of help tie those guts. And you put those together. And then Tableau events. How many of you attend local user groups in your cities? Awesome. Love to see that. We're continuing to develop those. We're continuing to incorporate more every day, every month, every year. Shout out to our community team. If you're interested in starting a user group in your local area, come talk to us after and I can help you, put you in touch with the right people. So attend those, right? Connect with people in your area. Hear the stories of how they're leveraging Tableau. Who's attended Tableau conference in the past, right? Because if you're here, then you've made an investment, not only time, but monetarily. So why are you here, right? So understanding the people in your organization who have attended conference, even if it's not at your organization, maybe it was a previous organization, they have some level of curiosity when it comes to Tableau and passion for learning. And then also get connected with local universities. Universities are starting to do some really great programs around analytics. Even maybe raising your hand is seeing how you can help. Jeremy said he's teaching at Tufts. He lives in DC. I'm not really sure how he does that, but good for him.
It's a long commute.
But connecting with those universities, right? I think that's a great way to give back. I think giving back to students and people who are learning and really giving them these actual tangible skills to take right out of work is just really awesome, right? So getting connected with them and understanding what they can do. And then the last one is simple, but we can help with connections, right? Maybe you, again, you're newer to your organization, you might not have an idea of the full footprint of Tableau. I got blueprint in my mind. So we can help you paint that picture, right? Maybe you want to talk to another customer, similar mindset, similar industry. That's where we can come in. We can help broker those introductions, right? Or you can go to local user groups, use things like Tableau Commerce to make those. But oftentimes it's hard to get connected with those people, so reach out to us. We have connections at all of these companies, and we're happy to bridge those gaps because I think there's so much magic when you guys start connecting, sharing ideas. On that front, how many has attended a brain date this week? How many know what brain dates are? Cool. More of you should attend brain dates. They're
Brain
awesome.
dates are super cool.
They're
Yeah.
super fun. You can talk about anything you want. So leverage us. Ask us. We want to help you with this information. We want to help you uncover these champions. And I think this is critical, right? So we just talked a little bit about how can you uncover people internally. But how do you find people who aren't at your organization? And I think it all comes down to hiring right. How do you hire the right people for your analytics team? What skill set are you looking for? When you're hiring for a Tableau-specific job, do you guys have certain work challenges in place to really ensure that they have the skills that they say they have, right? So thinking about how do you validate those skills? I've talked to a lot of organizations recently where their number one requirement, if they're interviewing for a Tableau analyst position and they do not have a Tableau public profile, they do not get an interview, right? Because that is proof that they know what they say they did. Obviously, there's some exceptions here, but I think it's a great way to really promote people to engage with the community, right? It shows that they're willing to spend time on something that they care about, because Tableau Public is obviously not company-related data, at least I hope not. So they're spending time in their personal free time to develop analytics. So it proves their work. Identify that skill set that you need for that specific role, right? Because if you think about it, not every desktop user within your organization has that same skill set. You have data scientists, maybe they need some statistics, but maybe you have an analyst within the sales organization who's doing just analysis at that level, and they don't need to know all that. So understanding what is the skill set you're looking for and identify that. And then don't forget the soft skills. I know I've talked about this a lot, but I'm going to talk about this again. This is really important. And I think what makes a great analyst is they do have that technical acumen to communicate the data and to build that dashboard. But it's so, so important for them to have that business acumen. Can you tell that story effectively? Are you curious? And don't be afraid to put yourself out there, right? And what I mean by that is, you're going to get asked as an analyst from executives or your team or your boss around certain requirements. Push back on them, being like, why are you asking me this question? What is the point of this, right? Because oftentimes what I'm finding is when I'm being asked a question, they're asking me a question, but they don't want the answer to that question. They want to answer to this other question, right? So let's really dive into that and understand what they're asking there, right? So I think that's, to be clear, it's just super important when you're looking for this, is to identify that job set for the 2 point of that technical acumen and just being able to hire the right person. Because if you hire the wrong person, then you're not setting them up for success. And then you're going to have to go through this whole process 6 months down the line. So let's not do that, right? So I think hiring and starting there is just super important, and really putting those guidelines into place and really thinking about it 360 is going to make you a lot more successful down the line. Now I'm going to pass it over to Jeremy, and he's going to talk about the final 2 topics.
Like I said previously, the data family is absolutely incredible, and they're willing to do a lot for these communities within your organization, all without any sort of incentive. When I was at Bank of America, I helped stand up, along with some of my colleagues, an internal virtual forum. And we did so not because we were looking to get a promo out of it or some sort of accolades from our bosses, but really just to bring together, our global user base, so that way they could dialogue with one another and help each other, answer questions as they came up, all within the cocoon of the Bank of America firewall. But how many of you have championed or volunteered for a cause just for it to become a burden? You volunteer for a cause, you do 2 hours 1 week, the next week it becomes 4 hours, the following week after that it's 8, and before you know it, basically all of your free time is spent, doing this one thing. And what started as something that you were super interested in has transformed into something that's not so fun and is actually quite a bit of a burden. That's what we're trying to avoid here by incentivizing the amazing champions within your organization. So the easiest thing that you can do to incentivize your champions is, quite honestly, free. It's broadcasting their impact. But is it simply enough to say, Mike was awesome. He presented at TC19, and it was great. This is a nice statement. It's a really great statement. I'm sure Mike's boss would appreciate this statement because, doesn't know this, but there's some, perceived issues with his performance and, whatever I can share with his management to counter those negative perceptions, I'm sure would be much appreciated. But I think we can dial that up a bit, right? Take that nice statement and make it a bit more meaty, put some more meat on the bone by adding some metrics to really demonstrate how amazing it was that Mike spoke at TC19. So when I talk about quantifying the impact of Tableau, I'm going to deviate real quick. We use Slack as our internal communication platform, and for those of you who use Slack, you can put emojis on statuses and that kind of thing. There's an emoji out there called the Happy Madigan face, and that is the Happy Madigan face. So, big fan of it.
I have really good friends.
But like I said, when I talk about quantifying the impact of Tableau, people usually look at me like I got 10 heads. And that's because they don't know how to quantify the value of visual analytics. I could say that Mike created 17 beautiful visualizations, and that's super. Let's go ahead and put that on Mike's performance eval. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and do the same for my 2.5-year-old daughter because she did the same in school last week. The value is definitely there. You just have to deconstruct the scenario a little bit to find the words that allow you to specifically value, how great that particular action or use case was. So consider this scenario. Mike was using Excel and Access to create a waterfall chart because he was looking to visualize the movement in employee headcount between hires and fires between one point and another within a given year. That effort, Excel and Access, used to take days to complete and would have to be done on a monthly basis. I'm sure everybody will, especially those of you who are super enthusiastic about Tableau, will identify with this statement. One night, he's sort of bored at home, decides to take on this project by using Tableau Prep Builder, opens up a bottle of wine, strike me as a cab guy, crab guy?
More of a white guy myself, actually. Yeah.
But he opens up a bottle of wine, opens up Tableau Prep Builder, starts to build a flow, and before you know it, he has created a repeatable process that allows that data prep to be condensed from a couple of days a month to a couple of hours per month. So what is the value add here? How do we quantify this statement? Is it $85,000 a year because we've automated Mike out of a job and he just got fired? Absolutely not. That's what everybody thinks was going to happen, but it's not. Mike's not going to lose his job. Instead, he's going to spend all that time that he originally devoted to data prep to now doing value-added analysis for his particular organization. So what's the savings? All we have to do is some simple math. So let's say, like I said, that the prep time is used, the prep time previously took about 16 hours per month. And if we multiply that by 12 months out of the year, we get 192 hours per year spent on this one process alone. That's a great number. That's a great metric to put against the savings, but everybody understands the almighty dollar even more. So now let's go through the process of converting this a level further. Like I said, Mike makes $85,000 per year, and let's say he works about 1,800 hours per year, which is far low. But if we go with that number, let's say he makes about $47 per hour. Now, when we multiply the 192 hours times $47 an hour, we get a savings of roughly $9,000. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot of money, but how many of you are using Tableau Prep Builder in here? So not too many. Those of you who are, I guarantee you have not just one use case like this, but probably 10 use cases like this. And for those of you who aren't, I would really encourage you to start to use Tableau Prep Builder so you can build up those use cases as well. But that $9,000 savings, it's not so menial anymore, right? Because 9 times 10, now we're talking about $90,000 per year, the cost of which is, let's say equivalent to one full-time associate. That's the meaty number that we're looking for when it comes to quantifying the impact of Tableau. So now after you've done that, what we want to do is we want to attribute that return on investment to your champion's efforts. Let's say Mike joined a webinar where he showed people how to use Tableau Prep. And after the fact, he or somebody from the Center of Excellence goes out and surveys everybody who attended, discovering that across the whole, there was an aggregate savings of 100 hours per month. Now, correlation, does not prove causation, but you can't tell me that Mike's efforts on that webinar didn't at least in some way help those individuals figure out how they could achieve that same ROI, that same win. The final step, after we've done the gonculations, is to share the stories, both internally and externally. Internally, when I was an individual contributor at Tableau, supporting customers directly, I would work with a lot of my amazing Tableau teammates. They would help me out from time to time. And in some cases, they were required to because they were aligned to, my specific accounts and that kind of thing. But sometimes, because they had a specific skill set that I was looking for one particular ask, I would rely on individuals who, didn't have anything to do with my org, but like I said, they just had a skill set that I was looking for. After they helped me out with that doctor session, that webinar, that one-on-one mentoring session or whatever, I would always send a short impact statement to their supervisors, which were then included in their performance reviews, which would then go on to be used to justify promotions and that kind of thing. That's the kind of promotion that we want to do for these champions internally to the organization. Externally, Tableau is always looking for looking for ideas of wins that we can share publicly on our website. Just this week, or excuse me, last week, a story went live about how the World Food Program is using data and the blueprint framework more broadly to do some pretty spectacular things around the world through the use of data. It's a fantastic story, and I would really encourage you to all go out there and read about it. It includes some meaty metrics, but the thing that I think is really special about this story is they specifically recognize their global data fellow community as critical to helping them achieve those wins. That's the kind of external promotion that we, Tableau, want to partner with you on, so that way you can recognize the good work of the volunteers within your organization. I also encourage customers to develop a system to reward the what that Mike talked about previously. I have two children. One is 2.5 years old, and the other is 3 months old. And just last week, I got my 2.5-year-old's report card from her school. And it identified things she needs to work on. There was one thing on there that I thought was sort of weird. It said she needs to work on walking around things. I didn't really understand what that meant, but then I started thinking about it, and I was like, oh, my kid falls a lot and trips over stuff. So that is something that my wife and I are now working on. But the other thing that she needs to work on, and I totally agree with this, is obviously potty training. And as I was sipping on my glass of wine, thinking about this presentation some months ago, I started to realize how remarkably similar our potty training efforts are to that of incentivizing and rewarding champions within an organization. So my daughter, her name is Ava, she does a potty, she gets a sticker. She does another potty, she gets another sticker, and at some point she redeems all those stickers for a piece of chocolate, the sweet of her choice. That's a Twix, unless my wife has eaten all of them, which is highly possible, because that's also her sweet of choice. I encourage customers to do the same, not exactly rewarding positive bathroom behavior, but by rewarding the what that we've talked about now. Are your champions writing blog posts, facilitating doctor sessions, hosting webinars, speaking at Tableau days? There's a lot of different things that you could give somebody a sticker or a badge for to say, hey, congratulations, job well done. Then the next step is to create a system to redeem those awards. And these don't need to cost anything. Sure, the creme de la creme is to say, do a whole bunch of stuff, I get you a Tableau conference ticket for 2020. That is the creme de la creme sort of reward that's out there. But simple free, free-ish stuff like stickers, t-shirts, even a certificate that you created on your computer that's signed by an executive within your organization. That stuff is great, I supported a large retail firm with a e-learning cohort last year, and about 5 people who participated in that asked me, what were they going to get? How were they going to be incentivized to be a part of this thing? And I was like, well, you're getting a free e-learning license, and you're going to learn a lot of stuff. And they said, yeah, but I kind of want some more. Can I get a certificate? And I was like, sure. I guess I can make something and get somebody in a position of prominence to sign it. So those are simple things that people really do appreciate, and I would encourage you to do within your organization. One thing I will also say is a lot of organizations have like corporate appreciation dollars. Bank of America, we had gold awards, silver awards, those kind of things, which were essentially equated to some sort of like cash value. That cash could be redeemed on an internal store for like Bank of America socks, which are super sweet, but also like more practical things like things I would never buy out of my own paycheck, like a Yeti cooler and some other cool stuff. So. And as I went out and evangelized on behalf of the Tableau platform and just analytics in general and helped people out with use cases and stuff, other business units would give me those basic awards just as a thank you for a job well done. So I would encourage you to figure out if and how you could do the same within your organizations. So the next and final part is all about credibility. We've all been a part of an organization where volunteers say they're going to do something, but as it turns out, actually do nothing. And that's no good because it destroys trust in the framework that we've created to bring the what and the who together. And on top of that, let's say that you've identified somebody who's going to be the go-to expert on all things mobile design or designing accessible dashboards or what have you, but after you've identified and lifted up that person as a champion, they go on to maybe only use the Tableau platform like once a year or something like that. That too can destroy trust in what you've built because they're not keeping up the skills that they need in order to be those go-to authorities. Credibility here is absolutely key, and I'm just going to cap us off by talking about how you can keep these champions credible. So credibility is simply taking the what and putting a mandate against it. So executive champions at the end of the day are doing all the wonderful things that Mike talked about. They're vocal advocates of the Tableau platform, they're promoting organizational change, help the organization become more data-driven, and so on and so forth. As such, I would say that executive champions are required to do the following. Host a Tableau Day where people are brought together to learn about the use cases that are taking place within an organization, but also a day in which people could come together to learn a new skill or so by having individuals facilitate sessions on dynamic parameters or whatever the new hotness of the day is. I'm definitely not suggesting that we should ask executives to sort of like roll up their sleeves and get in the weeds with planning, but we do a lot of this kind of stuff, and sometimes the logistics, like room reservations and such, tend to happen a bit more smoothly and with a whole lot less red tape if an executive simply puts their name to this particular lift. I would also say that these executive champions, they should keynote the Tableau Day. It definitely gives the individual an opportunity to share that vision on becoming a more data-driven organization, and that is super important. But I think there's a more important why behind this point, and that's by being present themselves, maybe for all of the day, if not at least for a sizable portion of the day. It's showing your people within an organization that it's okay to unplug for the duration of 8 hours to invest in yourself, which is ultimately going to reinvest back in the organization.
Real quick point on that. I was at a company the other day, I think, or here, I don't remember. No, it was a couple weeks ago. And it was what Jeremy just said, cutting out time to learn. They did a simple thing where they're letting their people take 1 hour a week just to focus on Tableau. So it doesn't have to be huge. It can be small. And you're going to find these people love to learn. They love Tableau. So give them that 1 hour. Sometimes that's all it takes. So it doesn't have to be this massive thing. So I just wanted to call that.
No, I think that's spot on. I got to drink a Coke, so it worked. And then the final piece is completing learning pathways. How many people have been by the Blueprint booth down in the Data Village? I would encourage everybody to go by that at some point today or tomorrow before you zip off back home. There's a lot of great information just around Blueprint in general, but around these new learning pathways that we have that we released just about 2 weeks ago as well. There's an executive sponsor badge that can be achieved, and it talks about a lot of what we're talking about here today, as well as a whole lot more. So stop by and check that out if you have time before you depart. Business champions. I mean, they're those passionate masses who are going to do a lot for the broader community. They're going to write the blog posts. They're going to facilitate the doctor sessions. They're going to do all of the wonderful things that we need to happen to help you implement Blueprint and scale it throughout your organization. But if we're going to raise these folks up and refer them as the go-to experts on, X, Y, Z, and then incentivize them for doing so, I believe that we need to make sure that they're checking the box. So let's put some metrics around the what. Let's require these individuals to do 2 doctor sessions per quarter or 1 blog post a month. It doesn't need to be, very, very regimented to say they need to do these things every single week. But if we're going to lift them up and refer them as an expert, put some numbers around it, at least on a quarterly basis. I would also say that your business champions should be focused on their own growth and development. So are they watching webinars? Are they going to TC? Are they obtaining and maintaining a Tableau certification and completing the learning paths beyond that? Ensure that they're also investing in themselves. And then finally, our IT champions. Mike outlined what our IT partners are responsible for, and there's a lot of people in IT in this room because I see every clickety-click going up, taking pictures of this slide. But yeah, I mean, Mike talked about the what. Standing up sandbox environments, establishing and maintaining clear support channels, and so on and so forth. Credibility here, in my opinion, is twofold. First, our IT champions need to listen to business users to help them find a way to be most successful with the Tableau platform. And one very, very easy thing I think you can do to demonstrate that you're willing to listen and have that constructive dialogue is just by hosting a quarterly roundtable where you bring everybody together either in person or virtually, and you learn about their challenges and their successes and so on and so forth, and really get a sense of what they want to see in the days ahead. In many ways, it's very similar to the way in which Tableau works with the community at large. We want to hear from you what you want to see out of the Tableau platform, so that way we can deliver capabilities that are going to help you be most successful with that platform. Dynamic parameters. It took 9 years, but we released it this morning, which is super exciting. Man, what I wouldn't have killed to have that when I was at Bank of America. A quarterly roundtable is going to give you instant credibility. And I say that speaking as a business user. I love my IT partners. Invest in that quarterly roundtable, and you're going to be given that instant credibility. The last thing that I would say is IT champions just need to make a plan and adhere to it going forward. Stuff happens, and that's totally okay. You will need to deviate from the plan time to time, but just communicate those deviations, and that's really that.
Cool.
Let's put it all together.
Let's wrap it all together, and let's remind you guys what you just listened about over the past 45 minutes. So, as the deployment expands to new departments and teams, new champions will be developed to scale your analytics practice. And what I mean by that, you need to multiply who you are today, X times X, right? As you grow, there's going to be more that goes into the deployment. There's going to be more resources that are going to be needed. So how do we solve the questions and the problems that were at hand? Not necessarily problems, but challenges. And that's what you're going to leverage these folks for, right? And I think there's one thing that Jeremy talked a lot about when it came to incentivizing your folks that I really want to call out is it doesn't have to be monetarily, right? Did anybody happen to go to JP Morgan's session around skill belts yesterday?
Couple.
Great.
Cool.
So we developed, it was a colleague of me and my colleague.
It was
my colleague
Mike
and I
humble brag.
developed that. JP Morgan put together that skill belt program. They've had over 1,000 people go through that program, and they get no monetary out of that, right? They get stickers, they get shout outs internally, they get executive recognition, but can you imagine? They have had 1,000 people go through a program which they've implemented about 12 to 18 months ago. So think about that. So it doesn't have to be money. It can just be those small things. So what did we talk about today, right? So we talked a lot about what champions are, what different types of champions are out there. IT, executive, business users. We talked a little bit about where you can find them internally. How can you leverage the data that you have? How can you leverage your Tableau team? How can you uncover those things, right? And then as you guys grow, because that's the whole point, you guys want to grow, you want to expand, you're going to hire more people. How do you think about hiring the right people, right? I think that's so critical. And it's also really hard. This is a really hard skill at the end of the day, and it's really specific. So let's make sure you're hiring the right people. And then incentivize. Let's make sure we can really incentivize these people. We need to focus on them. What is it going to benefit them, right? Obviously, it's going to benefit you, but they don't care about that. What is this going to do for them? And let's focus the messaging on that, because that's going to be impactful for them. And then finally, is we really want to add that credibility. Because these champions, they're obviously raised their hand to do something. They're taking extra time to spend time with you in Tableau or whatever. Let's give them that opportunity to continue to develop that skill set that they have. If it's at the executive level, maybe it's just analytic strategy. Let's understand how and what they want to help. So again, just asking those questions to your users, your champions that you have. What do you want to improve on? How can we help, right? So I hope this helped paint a better picture to you guys around what a champion is, leaving here today, thinking about all the amazing people and talent and stuff that you're doing at your organization today. Let's leverage that. Let's uncover those quick wins, those hidden gems, those awesome people, and let's see how we can kind of expand your network today.
So please make sure you take some time to complete the survey and the mobile app. This feedback definitely matters to us. After my sessions last year, I know you did the same. We reviewed all this stuff and read all your comments and figured out how we could not suck as much next year. So hopefully we met the mold, but definitely please fill this out. And with that, thanks for attending. We didn't do the contact.
And we will stick around if anybody has any questions.
Well, we can do questions, right? Or can we not?
No,
I don't know.
Not anymore.
All right, never mind. Well, here's our contact info. If you have any questions, we'll get back to it. Hit us up on Twitter, LinkedIn. Come up and say hi.
Do that.